All right. I think we are officially live, and we look a little different this morning because we have a different face that's here with us that hasn't been on one of these coffee talks. I think once before, but haven't been on in a long time. So we are going to also record this because this is a little bit of an announcement that we're making official now. It's partly to keep us accountable and to keep us on track. But we are going to be starting a brand new case study, a project, and we're calling it 1K Niche Property. And this will be project number 1. We do have possibly thoughts of doing another one in the future. But Chris Schaefer, what is happening, my friend? How are you doing over there in Colombia?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. I wish the sun would come out. I was telling you that before we got on. I'm so spoiled by the weather here that now when it's like a rainy day, I'm one of those people. You know, I turn into Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh, right? I've got that like one rain cloud just following me around. But other than that, I'm doing good. I'm really excited for this because one, it's a way for us to do what we love to do, and 2, it's something we're going to get to share with everybody in kind of a really cool way. Without a ton of work from us, which I'm also a fan of that, right? So it's going to be one of those things I think that people are really going to enjoy seeing the entire process from start to wherever it ends up. And I'm excited to kind of document the journey along with everybody, which is going to be a lot of fun as well.
Yeah. So what we're going to do though is we're going to this will be officially our announcement. So we are I'll go ahead and I'll kick this thing off officially here in a minute, and then we'll record this as we always do. And then what we'll do is we'll put this up on the podcast. It's going to be the first episode that we'll be talking about this and kind of like us looking back, 6 months from now, a year from now, and being able to track this kind of like a diary. Right? Like we're going to be able to document this. We do have a scheduled date that basically we're going to be posting this on the blog. We're also going to be doing podcast episodes on it. We will be giving more deep dive type stuff inside of our Brand Creators Academy, as we always do. But publicly, we wanted to at least give people the play-by-play and kind of like the numbers. We won't be revealing the niche, but we will be giving everything that we can, the company we're using, the strategy behind it, even some keyword research stuff, content creation stuff, and really what the goal is. And we are officially calling this, we finally just settled on it, 1K Niche Property, Project 1, which took a little bit of going back and forth, but I think we massaged it enough to get it to where we both like it. So, okay, let's do this. Let's kick this thing off. This is a Friday jam session technically. So if you guys have any questions for us after we get done here, we'll stay on and answer any questions. And then we can get on out of here. You can get on with your Friday, or if you're watching this later, you can watch this whenever you're watching this. Could be on a Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. All right, cool. So let's do that. Also, before we do get going here, let me just make sure that we are coming through loud and clear. If you guys could drop it in the comments, if we're coming through okay, audio wise, video wise, just to make sure. I see Scooby Life is on with us. Aldo is here. What's up, Aldo? Yeah, just give us a thumbs up if everything's cool, audio wise, video wise, just so we know. I know sometimes there's a delay with being able to see comments come through, so I'll give it a second. Everything's okay. Aldo says thumbs up. Cool. All right. Salma can see and hear you. Awesome. Okay, cool. What up, Alejandro? Thanks for the apple, buddy. Appreciate it. Chris, I get an apple almost every day from Aldo. Or I'm sorry.
Hey, Alejandro. I mean, you know what they say, Scott. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. So it's good. It's good to be a prof.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. All right. So here we go. We're going to officially kick this off. Here we go. This is going to be recorded so we can put it up on the podcast. You guys are hearing it here first. So here we go. If you do have any questions, drop them in the comments. All right, here we go. All right, guys, welcome back. This episode I am excited about because, well, we've got a a cool guy that's going to be hanging out with us. Well, he's a kind of cool guy every now and then. His name is Chris Schaefer. You guys may or may not know him depending on how long you've been listening to the podcast. But Chris Schaefer has been a good friend of mine and a partner of mine for a very long time now. And we have a lot of cool things that we're working on. But the one thing that we're working on, you guys probably have been hearing a lot about this niche properties thing, building this digital real estate. But we have a new project that we're going to turn into a case study that we're going to document. And Chris is going to be helping along the way here. And it's something a little bit different. It's a different way of building this niche property. Same concepts, just we're doing it a little bit different. And we're going to test it. We're going to experiment. We're going to spend $9,000, which we've already spent. It's already left my bank account to try to make this thing work. So what I'm going to do here on this episode is walk you through the idea, the concept, what our goals are, what our targets are, and what it looks like for the first 6 to 12 months. And the name of this is going to be 1K Niche Property, and it's going to be a project. So we're going to call it the 1K Project Niche Property, something like that. And we'll give you guys all the details. So Chris, are you excited about this? I know you are, but go ahead. Tell me a little bit about your project.
I'll tell you what, I'm pumped for a couple different reasons. One, we know that the model as a general rule works, right? And if this case study works, and you guys will get to see the good and the bad and some of the ugly and some of the beautiful stuff that happens. It's potentially a way for people to shortcut some of the process if they have a little bit of capital. Right now, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't do this without spending $9,000 up front. You absolutely can. And we have other sites that we've built from the ground up without doing that. But it's potentially a way for us to shortcut some of the process and get to revenue a little bit faster, which I think is kind of what everybody wants at the end of the day. Right. And so we're going to be showcasing everything, the good, the bad, and the ugly, like we said, both here and on the blog in a written format so that you can get a little bit better of an understanding of exactly what's going on. Because when we can show you screenshots and when we can explain why we did things in a longer format than just sitting here talking to you, you get a little bit better of an understanding of exactly what goes into this, whether you're using the shortcut method that we're attempting, and testing for this case study or not. So I think it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really useful for everybody that is a fan of the podcast. So I'm pumped. And I love the niche, both personally and professionally, right? We dug into the numbers, and it's something that I'm passionate about secretly. I know you are passionate about secretly. When we get together, it's something that we enjoy. So it's one of those things that I think is going to be really useful for people. And we're going to have a lot of fun with it along the way ourselves and, hopefully make a little bit of money as well. So it'll be fun.
Well, yeah. And so let me just kind of get people up to speed on really what this looks like as far as like a digital piece of real estate. We've been calling it digital real estate. Chris and I are both fans of real estate. We both have invested in real estate. We understand what that is, but we also understand like right now to get into the real estate game, depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it, it's expensive. The money's cheap. You can get really, really cheap money, but the houses that you can buy are obviously higher as well. So that all those numbers have to work out. You got to have more capital up front. With these, the great thing about it is we can start pretty much with nothing if we want to. Now, this case study, this project that we're working on is a little bit different, and I'll explain why and why we are willing to invest in this, right? Because it's similar to a piece of real estate, right? If I'm going to buy a piece of real estate, even for a couple $100,000, I got to put 20% down usually, right? And then I might have to do some remodeling and all of that stuff to get it ready. It might take a couple of months and construction costs are up, all of that stuff. So I'm still going to have to come up with money out of pocket. So what I'm doing here is I'm kind of using that same thought process as when I'm building one of these things. I'm going to invest a little bit of capital up front that I know that I'm investing. When if you're starting it from the ground zero, like nothing is there, the land is just cleared maybe, we can still do that, but it will take longer versus buying a house that's already there that we just have to remodel a little bit or build upon. And that's kind of the thought process here. Doesn't mean we're not going to build things from the ground up, because we are, and we actually have a couple right now that are in that process that we're working on. Actually, we have 4 in total. The 5th one is going to be this case study or this project as we're calling it. So with that all being said, just to kind of give you guys the overview of like what we're doing, the goal for this, just like a piece of rental property, is to get this thing to $1,000 per month. Okay. That is recurring passive income. And I know passive income, a lot of people talk about that. They're like, well, is it not really passive? In the beginning, not so much. As it gets going, it can be pretty much passive because we can hire a lot of the stuff that needs to be done to maintain this property, and it doesn't have to cost a lot. And usually when we get to $1,000 a month, we have growth potential there where we can get it to $1,500 or $2,000 or $4,000 with a rental property. Once you get it up, your rent is your rent. You're not really going to raise it $500 a month or $1,000 a month. That will be difficult. But what we can do with this here is we can build this out, get more traffic, or change our ad network, or add more affiliate products, maybe have our own digital products. Like, there's a lot we can do. But the goal for us for this is to get it to 1K. And that's why we're calling this the 1K niche property project. All right. Because that's the goal. Okay. To get it to the 1K of passive income and then build upon that. Okay. Chris, what is the target for you? I know kind of we've talked about it, but like, we're calling this the 1K. How fast can we get to 1K? And by doing it this way, can we get to 1K faster?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, for me, the goal would be to get there within the first year, right? So within the first 12 months. And if we get to $998 a month, I'm not going to complain about that, right? But I'm looking at the return on the investment. And, you know, if we were building it from the ground up, we could probably get there in, I don't know, 13, 14, 15 months. So I would say between 10 and 12 months is where I would like to start to see that. I think we'll be able to monetize faster than that, probably within the first 5 or 6 months without having much of a worry about, handicapping the growth or anything like that. But I think, I would say 10 to 12 months is probably a realistic goal, even with something like this. But I want to, but before I say, that's my goal, I want to see what happens in the first 2 to 3 months, because I think that will give us the roadmap for exactly when this is going to work, right? It's kind of like construction or a renovation where, you always have to double the budget that the contractor gives you and triple the timeline, right? So it's like, it's one of those things where it's like, theoretically, we could get there within a few months, but it's not up to us completely, right? If it were just up to you and I, we could probably do that. But there's other people involved, like Google, right? And some of those kinds of things. So depending on how far along we are in the getting out of the sandbox process and how fast some of that initial content ranks, that may change that. But I don't think it's unrealistic, Scott, to say within 10 to 12 months that we should be at that goal, right? And if you think about that, that's kind of insane from an ROI perspective. If we're saying we're going to put, $9,000 into this, and then a year later, essentially, you're going to be making that money back already. That's kind of crazy from an ROI perspective, but I don't think that's unreasonable. And you and I haven't really talked about this, so I don't know if your goal is a lot more aggressive than that. But I think that would be reasonable. I think we could potentially get there a lot faster, but I think that's probably a good benchmark in terms of expectations for everybody, right? Yeah. You may have some niches, and we found some yesterday in a class call where it was like, okay, if we write that content, we could rank number 1 and be getting 1,000 people because there's no content there, right? That gets you 1/50th of the way there with one post if you rank number 1 for that and you're capturing that search traffic. So, I think that 10 to 12 month mark is probably realistic. I'm curious what your thoughts are there, though.
Yeah. Okay. So originally, even when we started our other 2 case studies that we did for the Academy, our goal was to get it to 1,000 in 12 months. Now that we've done this already with a brand new domain. Okay. So a domain that was purchased off of GoDaddy, brand new, no history, no authority, nothing, right? Starting from 0. And then also publishing content, but now looking back at it, we could have been a little bit more strategic. So we didn't hit our 12-month mark. We hit it in about, I'd say 18 months, which is still pretty good, right? To get to that 1K mark. And now all of a sudden it's starting to hockey stick. Okay. So I personally think because we are doing this differently now, and I'll explain what this is and why this is different. And in one part of it is a big, big difference, and we'll see if that actually pans out to be better. But I'm thinking in my own head, 8 months. I want to get there. I mean, 12 months. You can hear Maisie thinks it should be about 8 months too. I would say 8 to 12 months is like you better be there, right? In my head. If I'm going down this route, if I'm not going down this route that we're going to talk about, then I would say absolutely give it 12 months, 18 months. We should definitely be there, right? Because now we understand how we're going after keywords now differently, how we're looking at the competition. And also we understand that a brand new domain is going to take 6 to 8 months just to get out of the Google sandbox, right? And if you guys don't know what that means, it's basically where, Google kind of puts you in a little probation area for a little while until you prove to them that, your content is good and you have, a good site and people are landing on it and staying on it and just all of these different things. And we don't know all of them, but usually you're kind of in this little holding place until they actually allow you to be seen by everyone that's searching. Now, there is a little bit of a shortcut there, and that's what we're going to be talking about here today. And that's what this project is going to allow us to test. And that is using what they call an expired domain. All right. Now, there's been a lot of talk over the years of an expired domain. What does that mean? Is it legal? Do you just take that site and then redirect it to a new site? And yeah, you can do that, but that's not the way that we feel is going to be the best. So, Chris, why don't you elaborate a little bit on expired domains and why we would want to even consider doing this? And I might have lost Chris. So
essentially, yeah, I think we have a little bit of a delay, and I don't know where it's coming from. I may refresh here if you let me know that.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. How far behind are you? Or did we catch up now?
I just heard, how far behind are you?
Okay, so we're like a good 10 seconds apart, which is crazy.
Yeah.
After this rant, I think I'm going to refresh and see if that solves the problem. And Justin said expired domains are risky. They can be, right? If you don't do a little bit of research into where the links that were pointed to them are coming from and all of those kinds of things, right? But an expired domain in general is a website that somebody built and then let go, right? So Scott, when you were talking about the Google sandbox, the reason that Google puts you in a sandbox is because they're not sure if you're ready to go play with the other kids, right? Like I like to use that as like the preschool analogy, right? Like you're new at the school, they're going to put you in the sandbox to see how you interact with everybody else. And if you're throwing sand and you're kicking rocks and you're taking everybody else's toys, they're not going to let you out of the sandbox. If you play well with others and you're doing the right things and you're sharing and you're building sandcastles and you're not burning people's Barbies, then they're going to let you play with the other kids, right? An expired domain has kind of already been through that process. And generally speaking, they have a little bit of authority, which means your content can rank for slightly more competitive things faster, right? And you and I have said in the past, Google doesn't rank websites, they rank web pages, right? And Google has specifically said that themselves. The problem with that theory is that it takes time for Google to realize that your page is better and more trustworthy than the people that they will default to. So people get all caught up about domain authority and Google will always favor that. They won't. But what they do is they give you the benefit of doubt, right? Because they know that generally speaking, you provide good content, you play well with others, right? You're able to interact with other people and other things. And so when you start with an expired domain that has some authority, Google kind of has already gone through that process, at least with that domain, right? And so it gives you a little bit of a leg up because the same content that you would publish, Scott, if we wrote the same exact article, now Google knows that would be duplicate content. That's a different conversation. But let's just say it was the same quality with all of the same metrics. same length, same number of images. People stayed on the page the same exact amount of time. They bounced in exactly the same way. And you have a higher domain authority than I do. Google will rank your content higher faster because they say people generally trust this. So I'm gonna test this one first. And if people don't like that, then I'll go to Chris's piece of content. So essentially it lets us shortcut a little bit of the ranking process, even though we would get there eventually. Right? With the same exact piece of content, we would still rank. It just makes that process faster in theory. And you see that a lot in the other case study sites that we have, Scott. Our content now, instead of taking 5 to 6 months, we can rank stuff within a week or two that would have taken us 3, 4, 5 months to rank for in the past. So theoretically, if you're writing that same piece of content and putting it on a domain that already has authority, which is essentially what an expired domain is, that you get the chance to rank faster. So if you're still writing good quality content, that means you get traffic slightly faster. That means you are able to build and monetize faster, which is why I think you said like eight months. You know, to me, eight to 10 is probably realistic for something like that. Whereas if we were building this from scratch, right, if this was new construction versus a renovation, it would probably take us 12 to 15 months to get to the same level. So theoretically, with an expired domain, you can rank and start bringing in traffic a little bit faster than you would otherwise. It does cost more, substantially more in a lot of cases. But if you have a little bit of capital, theoretically, you can start to recoup that a little bit faster. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So let me kind of dig into, because I saw that we had some comments coming in here. So here's the overall strategy. Okay. We're going after a domain that is expired, and this expired domain is from a company that vets these out, which I'm going to be having him on. Actually, there's 2 partners, but I'm going to have Adam on from this company, and I'll give more details about the company, who they are, and all of that stuff at a later date, but I'm not going to do it as of yet. And so what we are basically doing is we are going to a trusted source of someone that is a professional at vetting out an expired domain. Okay. Because there's probably like 20 different things that they look at to make sure that the domain is clean, it's healthy, it's had no negative stuff done to it. It hasn't had, any type of like poker sites or, adult, content out there, like anything that's going to throw a red flag up. And they're going to go back through that domain and look at that stuff. They're going to look at things like the trust flow and the DR and the DA and like all of these numbers that don't make a lot of sense to you or I, right? Like we don't understand all of the numbers and all of the metrics, but they do. So we're leaving it up to them because they are trusted in this vetting process. Now, you are right. Justin is actually the one I'm referring to because he said expired domains are risky. They can be if you're just looking at an expired domain site that just shows you expired domains. You have no idea about them. You can do a little bit of digging, but you don't do the extensive digging. And so that's why we want a company that will do that we trust. The other thing that you want to make sure that if you're buying an expired domain is you want to make sure that it's on the topic that you're going to be creating the content on. So if you were to buy something that was, I don't know, an old photography site, and I'll give you an example, a photography lab, right? And they processed film. Not a lot of people processing film nowadays. There's hobbyists, but there's not everyday people doing that. So the 1 hour photo, those types of places, they're in like Walgreens now. You don't need a photo lab anymore. But let's say that site was around since 2004, and they've had links coming in from the local news, or maybe even they've been featured on a popular photography website and all of this stuff, right? And they're getting good high quality links. Their domain authority is up. They've been in good standings with Google, and they just let it expire because they went out of business, right? Now, if I want to start a site on, I don't know, barbecuing, I'm probably not going to build it on that site because it's not going to be relevant. And that's what Google is also looking at, is relevancy. It's a big deal to have a relevant site about the stuff you're talking about. So that's really, really important. Now, if we were to buy that domain and build a photography information site, it would probably work great. Nothing wrong with that. Okay. So that's the one thing that you want to understand about expired domains. Now, I'm basically saying all this without ever testing if it's going to actually help us get to where we want to go faster. Okay. That's what this case study is about. So you probably want to follow along with us, and we're going to do monthly reports on this. So we're going to be putting a blog post out. We'll be doing a podcast episode on it. So if you want to follow along, Chris, do we have the link for that? And if you're listening to this at this time live, it may not be available yet, but we did actually grab a URL for that. There's going to be two. I can give them a short link, or Chris, if you have that other one, can you say what that one is so they can go there, and then when we have it ready, it'll be there so they can follow along?
Yeah, give them the short link. It should be, I think we said brandcreators.com/1K. Currently, that's not going anywhere. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take that and direct that to a category inside of the blog that will give you guys all of the case study posts. And then I'm waiting on an email confirmation on the actual domain. But other than that, we're good to go.
Okay, cool. All right. So yeah, so what we're going to be doing here again is bringing you through this process. I'm going to have one of the co-founders of this company that I'm working with, but here's where the money comes in. Okay. So like I said, we could do this from scratch, which we have. Like, you literally start with a domain that costs you, I mean, if you get a coupon for GoDaddy, you can get them as cheap as $1.99, right, for the year. But let's just say you spend full price, you go crazy, and you spend, $12 on a domain name, you get some hosting, and you're basically up and running. Like, that's all that you really need. You're going to have to do the content writing yourself, but that's all that you would need to actually get one of these started. Now, if you want to outsource, that's where the money would come involved, or become, where you would then have to do the investment in content. And that content can range between, I don't know, $35 and $100, depending on the quality that you want to get. We've been finding anywhere from $35 to $55 is probably where you're going to land. But again, if you're looking at this as building a piece of real estate, we're investing in this thing. And like Chris said, like, even if we said we're going to invest $9,000 into this thing, and a year from now, it's now netting us $1,000 in 9 months, that's going to pay for that investment. When's the last time you could buy a rental property and then in a year's time, net positive cash and pay off that property in a year? You don't. You wait 30 years and you hope that it covers costs, so the equity goes up, so then you cash out. So that's the difference here. The difference is, and also the difference is the market right now is increasing for what the valuations are for these. So the valuations on these were usually about 30, 32x on the net profit per month. So if you're making $1,000, be $30,000 or maybe $32,000. These have been now approaching 40 to 45 times, which is crazy, right? So again, that same property could sell for, if it's making $1,000 a month, can sell for $40,000 or $45,000. And they're being purchased quickly, very, very quickly. So there's less inventory out there. So for us to be a builder and build these just to sell them could be the strategy. But we're going to build it, hold it, see where we're at, and maybe we'll sell it. So that's kind of like the overall view of what we're doing and why we're doing this on an expired domain. So this will be a project about an expired domain and building content on there. We're also using one of their packages on this site that they're going to produce 100,000 words of content, which breaks down to about 70 to 75 pieces of content, because we're going to go between 1,000 and 1,500 words typically. One might be 1,000, one might be 1,500, 1,400, 1,800, but we're going after 100,000 words, and we're going to do that. All of that work will be done by a third party, okay? And then after that is done, we are going to then continue to add content at a regular basis, but we're also going to see what that's doing in a 3-month period. Right now, we're going to publish this content within about an 8-week timeline. So literally, we're dumping that content on the site very, very quickly, so it gets indexed very, very quickly. And then we're going to be able to look at our Google Analytics, our Search Console, and then we can see, are we in fact starting to get indexed? How fast are we getting indexed? So we can look at all of that stuff. So that's really what we're doing here. And again, the goal is to get this thing to 1K positive every single month. And that will be done through mainly, we're going to be doing it through display ads. Like that's where we're going with this. So Chris, anything I left out there that we need to address or discuss?
No, I think this case study, this project that we're working on, is a combination of a few different strategies that you've heard us talk about, especially if you're in like the niche properties course, right? Or if you've been a listener of the podcast, right? Where we're combining kind of an expired domain, which, and I believe Salama asked, do you mean that you're outsourcing content so you're going to rank faster? No, the expired domain theoretically helps the same content rank faster, right? So we're taking that strategy, we're combining that with the content blitz strategy, which Scott, you've talked about in the past, which would be, a post a day for 30 days or something like that, right? And in our case, we're going to be publishing essentially a post a day for 2 months, right? In 8 weeks, we will have 70 posts, right? So there's slightly more or slightly fewer than 70 days in 8 weeks, but give or take, it's a post a day for 2 months. And the reason that we're doing that is because we want to see how fast we can get that content to rank, right? And Scott, you and I have talked in the past, and I mentioned it earlier in this episode, where it takes 4, 5, 6 months for a single piece of content to rank. And so if we're publishing one a week, that's fine. If that's our budget, if that's our cadence, if this is something we're working on the side, that's totally cool. But you got to keep in mind that it's going to take 6 months for that content to rank. So by the time you get to 6 months into a project like that, you have only 4 to 8 articles that are really kind of in the position that they will end up in. If we publish an article a day for the first 2 months, by the time we get to that 6 month mark, we have 30 articles. By the time we're at 7 months, we have 60 articles that are there. And then we can kind of dial that back a little bit. And theoretically, Scott, you and I have talked about this. Our goal for content is to write content that we think will bring us between 300 and 500 visits per month from search, right? So if we use that kind of low end number of 70 articles, and we use the low end number of 300 visits for those pieces of content, theoretically, this initial blitz can get us kind of halfway to that goal of 50,000, which is typically where we see, the ability to get to about $1,000 a month just from ads. That would get us to 21 or 22,000 if they only get us the minimum, right? Now we're going after topics, and this is something we'll talk about a little bit more in the Q&A portion of this. We're covering topics that we think will bring us substantially more than that. But even if that's all they brought us in on average, remember, you're going to have some that bring in 1,000 and some that bring in 50 or 100, right? That's just the way that it works. But if that averages out, then this initial content blitz will get us halfway to that goal, and we'll be there within the first 6 months. So that was something I wanted to make clear for people, because in theory, the faster we create content, as long as it's good quality content, right, the faster we're able to rank, and the faster we are able to start really reaping the rewards of that traffic. So we're combining those two strategies, the expired domain, which theoretically takes us out of the sandbox and lets our content rank higher faster, and the content blitz strategy to see how fast we can get this to 1K sustainably.
Yep. The other thing I will say, and this is another thing that I'm going to be most likely doing, and you and I have talked about this, Chris, is, okay, let's say that you don't want to go down the route of an expired domain. That's fine. We've got 4 other sites that are not, and so we're working on those. But one of the most recent ones that we started to build back out again, and I say again because we initially created this as like a dummy site to basically just show how to set up WordPress and how to set up, hosting and things like that. And we published like 10 or 12 articles, and then we just let it sit, sat there, because we were like, okay, we're just gonna, we used it as a demo and that's it. And then about 13, 14 months go by, and I'll go, I'm going to just jump in the analytics and see what's happening there, if anything's happening at all. And we're getting like 1,500 page views a month just from it sitting there. So 2 things are important here. And this is something that I will be doing, and Chris and I both talked about. If there's something like, as you start going through this process, you start going through the niche selection and validation and the land surveying, as we call it, you're going to probably have more niches than you're going to have time to build out. So what I'm going to be doing, and Chris is going to be doing, is we're going to take a fresh domain, we're going to buy it, okay? And then we're going to add 10 pieces of content, and then we're going to leave it and let it sit for 12 months, 15 months, whenever we decide to then start working with it again. Because what that does is it allows us to get out of the sandbox. It lets us to start getting indexed. It lets us start to get relevancy, and then we can come and start to build it, right? And so that's another strategy that you could do. It is going to take 12 months before you to be able to start working on that now, but it's something to pre-plan in a sense. And it doesn't cost anything other than just go ahead, buy the domain, put it up on some hosting. And the thing is with hosting, depending on who you're using, even if you wanted to just use one hosting package to kind of like host maybe 4 or 5 different sites, I wouldn't recommend doing that once you start to build it out. But to just kind of maintain them and keep them there, we can always transfer them off of that host. It wouldn't cost you anymore because you can usually have more than one site on a host. I just don't recommend it when you start to go down the road of building it out because we want to keep it more on a dedicated server. So that's just another thing. But I'm really excited about this one here in particular because it is going to require almost zero. Well, it is 0 time. The only time it is I've already invested 1 hour in discussing the strategy for or the keyword research plan that we want to go after. And it really wasn't even me. It was like, hey, when you're doing the keyword research, I don't want you to go after local search right now. I want you to go after, all search, right? And that was really the discussion. And I want to go more information versus product based because I want to go after display ads. And that was it. And then what happens is this company now is going to come back with a list of topics that we are going to go after using their strategy, which they call tomb rating, which is basically where they go after other sites because now that we have a domain score, and I think the domain authority for our site or the expired domain is like a 23. So now what we're going to do, or they're going to do, is find, domain authorities that are 23 or less that are ranking for content in page 1. And we're going to go after that because we have a better domain score and we have relevancy and we should be able to outrank them. So that's going to be the strategy. Don't know if it's going to work, but we'll let you know. That's what this little project, this little case study is going to be doing, is really documenting this and also allowing us to be able to look back and go, okay, that's what happened. Okay, cool. Look at that. Look at that. And it's very similar to what we did in Brand Creators Academy. If you are listening to this or watching this and you're in the academy, if you recall, if you go back to, I documented the first 12 to 14 months where every month I would come in and I would show the traffic and how it was growing. And the very first month was like nothing. And then the second month was kind of nothing again. And then the third was like a little bit. And then the fourth, we got 500 page views that month. Great. And now that same site is getting, let's see, between 60 and 70,000 page views. It's earning anywhere from, I'd say $1,000 up to $1,500 per month, give or take. And it's growing. And it's growing. The traffic is growing now. And the domain authority on that site now is, I think it's a 20. I think it's a 20 all on its own. All got natural backlinks. But the cool thing is about that piece of property right now, we could sell that thing tomorrow for probably around $40,000 to $45,000. And it would go quick. So anyway, that's what our case study is going to be about, our little project here that I wanted to kind of go over with you guys. If you do want to follow along, definitely make sure you go to brandcreators.com/1K, and that will take you to the page where you'll get the information about this. We'll probably have links and stuff there that you can go see, maybe even some resources for you. Let me also throw this in here, little shameless plug. If you want to get started building your own niche property, whether it's going down this path or just building one out from scratch, I would definitely recommend you check out our niche properties class. You can go to buildnicheproperties.com. Again, that's buildnicheproperties.com. You can go there. You'll see all the details. And literally, we will walk you through all the way from choosing the niche to building out the website. And then from there, creating the content, whether you want to create it yourself or have someone else do it. And then from there, continuing to grow to get to monetization. Everything is laid out for you. We have guides and checklists and action steps, all built right into that class. So again, that's buildnicheproperties.com. You can get all that. So there's my little shameless plug. All right, Chris, let's go ahead and let's answer some questions. We'll also let these questions air on the podcast. I know we're going to do this live here with everyone that's on. Do you have any questions that you can see that we should answer first?
Yeah, so Ali Pandro said, will the niche be revealed or are you going to tell us the category?
Yeah, well, I'm going to say that we are not going to reveal the niche right away. We'll definitely probably let people know in Brand Creators Academy because that's what we do there, but not until we get that thing rolling. And publicly, we will probably reveal the category just so you have an idea. So that way there you can also understand like, and we'll give examples of like what type of category, and then from there, like how it's being built out and the advantages, disadvantages, how you're finding content and stuff. But we won't be revealing it. And I can't say that we won't ever reveal it. It just won't be for the first 6 to 8 months, just because we don't want a whole bunch of people jumping on there, even though we have a seasoned domain and stuff. We don't want any traffic coming from other sources other than the search traffic. What else you got, Chris? All right. I'm not hearing from Chris, so I'm going to go ahead and read some myself. There's a huge delay. Oh, sorry. Yeah, there's a huge delay now. Let's see. Okay. On your fresh site, are your 10 pieces of content posts, pages, or a variety? Posts. There's only going to be a few pages. There's going to be an About Us page, a Contact Us page, and probably a the other page, About Us, Contact Us, and a disclosure page. And that's really it. Everything else is posts. Let's see here. Salma, would you rather have 5 niche sites making $1,000 a month totaling $5,000, or 2 sites making $2,500 a month totaling $5,000 a month, and why? It's a great question. And I would say that in the very beginning, I wouldn't be thinking that further or, that far down the road. But once you're up and running and established, I would say I would rather have 5 different sites doing that, because it cuts down on the risk of something happening to one of the other 2 sites, right? So I would rather take that, just like rental properties, right? I would rather have more units than I would having just one piece of property. Now, with my Airbnb, I do have 1 property. It does very, very well, but I would much rather have 5. The problem is it costs a lot of money to get another one up and running. So, we're not going to go down that road, but yeah, that's where I would rather be with that. So I would say diversification on your portfolio is always a smarter move. But when you're first starting, I wouldn't think that. I would think, let me get it to $1,000 and then I can repeat the process, right? I wouldn't start 5 of them at once. Chris, you back with us?
I think so. I hit refresh because we were like a good 45 seconds apart, which makes no sense. I'm in the same boat. The question here, Salama, comes down to whether you want it to be as passive as possible or as secure as possible, right? Having 5 sites making $1,000 a month is more secure, but it's also more work. Having 2 sites making $2,500 a month is less work, but it's slightly less secure. And also, you lose out on some opportunities when you go to sell because you have fewer opportunities to sell, right? So we could find a niche that somebody's, paying 40x in versus 30 or 35, and that doesn't sound like a lot, but that's an extra 10 grand, right? Or an extra $15,000. So it just depends on how much work you want to put into it, right? Same thing in real estate. People are like, do you want single family or multifamily? Well, it depends on what your goals are, right? So to me personally, I think I'd rather have the 5.
Yeah. Okay. Let's do another one here. If you were starting, would you buy expired site or new one and build from scratch? I would probably say, again, it comes down to what are you comfortable with investing, right? If you are comfortable investing some money up front, then I would probably try to find a good seasoned expired domain that gives me a head start. Or I would look to buy a website on Motion Invest or on Empire Flippers or any of those. I would buy a site. But when you're buying a site, like Chris and I were just looking at a site the other day, one that we can purchase an expired domain, which I'm actually in negotiations to do myself right now. I'm not going to build it out as of yet, but I just want to secure the expired domain. But there's a site right now that's being sold on one of these or through one of these companies, and it's about $19,000. It's in the same niche, but it's already got 500 articles built out. But the problem is that those 500 articles are only bringing in about 13 to 15,000 page views, which I know isn't going to bring me enough, ad revenue. So then it's like, well, then I got to go through all 500 of those articles and see if they're any good, right? I got to do all this work when I could just probably buy an expired domain, take that money that I was going to invest in that. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit of delayed, but at least I'm going to know what I'm building. So you could either buy one that's already done, bringing in some money. And I think that one was bringing in $400 or $500 per month, right? But I was going to invest 19 grand up front to get to that $500 mark, or I can push off the return for 8 to 12 months if I build it on an expired domain and possibly I know I'll surpass $500 a month and I won't have to spend 19 grand. So we kind of didn't spend the 19. We're thinking about buying the expired domain and then sitting on it for a little while, maybe adding a little bit of content on a regular basis, but we've already got enough projects going on. I don't want to add another one to it as of right now. So hopefully that answered that question. Alejandro, Chris mentioned in one of the videos that we should not use bullet points because Google will think it's what? Chris is laughing if you guys can't see him.
Okay.
Now he's unmuted.
So for anybody that's in Brand Creators Academy, you've heard this rant. I've never said don't use bullet points. What I said is use bullet points as bullet points. Bullet points should be a bullet with a couple words. They should not be paragraphs. And one of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is they write a bullet and it's 4 sentences long. It should be a short insertion, right? So a bullet point for this might be bullets should only be as long as they need to. Next bullet point. Right? I'm not going to write bullet points should only be as long as they need to. They shouldn't be longer than a few sentences, blah, 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 blah. It's not a paragraph. It's a point. So it's like an aside, right? Or it's a quick list of things. The best way to think about bullet points is like a grocery list, right? You're not going to write, I need 38 grams of wheat flour that has been ground by one-armed monks in Tibet. You're going to write 38 grams of wheat flour. Right? Or wheat flour or flour or something like that, right? On your grocery list. So that's the way that I would use it. When you write long paragraph bullet points, it takes away from the structure of the article and it makes it harder for Google to understand exactly how that fits into everything else, right? What a lot of people do is instead of making it a subsection with a title in the article, they go, oh, I'm just going to make this a bullet. And then they write what should be a broken out subsection. And when you do that, Google doesn't get to see the structure of what you're trying to intend to write. So instead of writing that as a bullet point, you would say wheat flour, and then you would describe the kind of wheat flour that you would want, right? Just if you're going to use bullets, it should be a quick point. That's it. Yep. Unlike my answer to the question about bullet points.
Right. Exactly. Okay. And then the other question was, what was the Google update that impacted some websites negatively in the past? Can we do anything to avoid this? Well, basically follow what we're telling you and you should be okay. I'm not saying it's guaranteed, but what I'm saying is the updates in the past most likely were things along the lines of black hat type stuff or even gray hat, right? It's like you creating a PBN, private blog network, which has been going on for years, where you build all of these little mini properties, all of these little websites that might even be built on an old expired domain. And then you point links to all your stuff. And that's it. You just have these 5 sites or 10 sites. And I mean, there's literally services out there that will build you a private blog network so you can just point links to your stuff. That is not within terms of service within Google. That they are smart enough to figure that out. The problem with that again is you're trying to create a shortcut, and that shortcut that you're doing is not really a true backlink that should be coming from another website. Now, the right way of doing that nowadays, and I'm not gonna go too far down this road, which we're actually gonna be testing this as well, is to basically create what they call a skyscraper post. And a skyscraper post is just a long post that someone has identified as another post that someone wrote, okay, that's getting a lot of backlinks. And then you create one better and you reach out to some of those websites and go, hey, I noticed that you linked to this. I've got a better resource here for you might be interested in. And then those links get pointed over because people are genuinely wanting to share this resource. And that becomes a strategy, but it's another strategy that you'd have to deploy. We haven't done zero link building up until this point. Zero. And our sites are growing. Our domain authority is growing just from publishing content and attracting links naturally. So I would say link building is a big one. The most recent one, and I'll have Chris talk a little bit about the EAT and all of that stuff. But that's why we say kind of stay away from like the medical poker, anything like that. Like stay away from any of that stuff. But what we've got someone making themselves heard. The other most recent one is where they went after affiliate sites. So basically, if your content was all best, best fishing lures for catching bass, right? And then the next one is best fishing poles for catching bass and best blah, blah, blah. That was all your content. So your content was just best, 5 best, whatever. They went after those sites because they don't want just sites built for becoming an affiliate. They don't want that. What they want is information for you to provide to the end user. So that's why, and we've always done this, even from the beginning when we started to go down this road, is we just lean a lot heavier on informational content, question-based content. And so now what those sites are doing that were hit with this little update, what they're doing is now they're trying to throw a whole bunch of informational content on their site so it has a better balance, and they're hoping that'll bring their rankings back. But once you get a negative hit like that, it doesn't mean that you can't recover. It just means it might take some time. So I personally think informational content is the way to go. Get to display ads, and then also you can sprinkle in some affiliate stuff. Like that's the overall strategy. Anything, Chris, I missed there?
Yeah, the 4 big Google updates that people talk about, 2 of them happened in 2011 and 2012, right? Those were Panda and Penguin, and both of those kind of went after shady backlinks, right? Which is one of the reasons we don't go do link building a ton, right? We're dabbling with it a little bit with some of the pillar posts, but basically if you write good quality content, you're going to get backlinks. It just happens naturally. Now, can you speed up that process by specifically targeting things that are already getting? Yes, absolutely. Right. But you're going to get backlinks naturally, which is why you heard Scott say earlier, some of our case study sites have gotten to a place in the last 2 years where they have a domain authority of 20, 25, something like that. The other 2 were Hummingbird and BERT. I love the way that SEO people name these Google updates.
I know.
Both of those had to do with low quality content, right? So if you're writing good quality content, you don't have anything to worry about. Google's updates are designed, and the product update or the product review update, Scott, that just happened at the end of June, beginning of July of 2021, is designed to go after low quality content, right? It was another thing that they saw that was ranking well in the Google algorithm that they said, this isn't giving anybody any value, right? The robot thinks that it does. The Google bot thinks that it does, but we need to change the way that the Google bot is thinking about this because no one finds value in these sites. That doesn't mean you can't write product reviews. It means you have to write good quality product reviews if you're going to do that. And so what they did was they penalized sites with what they call thin content. So basically a single line about the product and an obvious affiliate link, right? That's not what we recommend doing. We recommend writing good quality content. And if you are inside of the niche properties course, or you're inside of Brand Creators Academy, or you've heard any of our rants about the way that we create content, you would understand that it's designed for the user and not for the algorithm. Google's updates are always designed to go after the people who are cheating the algorithm or are working, in the gray areas of the algorithm. So if you're writing good quality content and you're not doing anything outwardly shady, Google will generally favor you. That doesn't mean that you might not see a temporary dip as they reshuffle everything. But generally speaking, the people who write good quality content and do the right things almost always come out ahead when those things happen. The people that you see complaining are the people that are using AI to write single line articles, or they're, just going to Amazon and copying and pasting the product description and putting it in a list of things, generally speaking, right? So I wouldn't worry too much about algorithm updates as long as you're writing the piece of content that you're writing to be the best resource available when somebody types in that keyword. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, 100%. And yeah, I would just say, like, any of these updates, you probably will see a shift. Okay. And it's kind of like the stock market. I've said that, like, you will see a dip, but you'll usually see it come back as long as you've done the right thing, right? As long as you've done the right thing. And so to me, anytime that there is a Google update, sure, you're kind of thinking to yourself, am I going to be hit? How long is the hit going to last? As long as you are creating good content, like Chris said, you're laying it out in a good fashion. It's not thin. It's good. It's well structured. It's got good images. It might even have some YouTube videos embedded. Like, you're genuinely creating a good piece of content that when someone lands there for that question to be answered, they're getting the answer and they're having a good experience, right? And so as long as that's happening, I believe that you will bounce back. Okay. And a lot of people have said that, like, you'll see a dip and it might last for a week. It might last for 2 weeks. Heck, it might even last for a month. And then all of a sudden you start to see your traffic tick rate back up because everyone else has kind of got shuffled around too. And those people went away now, and now they're filling the spots with your content. So I wouldn't worry about it. I would just try to keep best practices in mind always. Okay. Let's do a couple more questions here. Let's see here. Okay. What's the price range for a good expired domain? That is going to depend. And there are companies out there. I have not looked into some of the more reputable companies other than the one that I'm going through right now, which they don't sell expired domains by themselves. They sell them with their content package. So typically they are going to range between $7,500 and like $9,500. Somewhere in there. But that comes with like all the setup, that comes with your logo design, that comes with your install of your WordPress. It also covers 100,000 words of content. So really, they only do it as a package because they want their services to be also used within that. But there are companies out there. I've seen companies that they charge that much alone just for the expired domain. I personally, my limit on if all you're doing is buying an expired domain would probably be like $1,500, $2,000 would be my max. Outside of that, I'm going to go and just build my own and get it. I would just buy it, put some content on it and let it, kind of season for a little while and then come back to it. I don't think I would spend more than that. Do you look at what is selling currently to figure out what the niches are fetching more money? Yeah, I mean, I like to go and look at the different sites that sell websites right now. Even Empire Flippers, they don't give you the URL unless you give them a deposit. But you can at least see the niches that are doing well. Flippa, I mean, you can find some useful stuff there, but that's a little bit more of a, I don't know, it's like more of a shadier platform to me. It's just like there's some people there doing some weird stuff to inflate their numbers, and then I don't know. So, but I do get ideas there if I want to go and just use that as a research tool. Or there's Motion Invest. There's the other one was blogsforsale.com, I think it was. There's Quiet Light Brokerage. They sell content sites. So I'm just trying to be aware of the marketplace and see what is selling and what is what people are paying for. But with that being said, it doesn't mean that all niches are created equal, and just because you create one in the same space doesn't mean you'll have the same results. So there is a little bit of a risk there as well. But I think no matter what, you'll be able to, unless you're in a very, very obscure, weird niche, that's when I might even reach out to Mediavine or reach out to Ezoic and say, hey, I'm going to be creating a site on this. I'm curious, do you accept these types of sites? And what is the history been in the past for RPMs? And maybe they'll give you some information. Maybe they won't. I don't know. But I also wouldn't overthink that too much. Are we feeding our site with question and product articles? Yes. What are the other methods to propel our site that you would suggest? Well, that's the basics. Yes, email list you have here, influencers, Haro. Is this correct? And the answer is yes on all of them. But how much work do you want to put into all of those other things? Email list to me would be a good one, but it's also one that's going to require more work on your part. If you're willing to do it, absolutely, because you can send a few hundred people there on a regular basis, and that will help move things along. It can also help you if you want to launch digital products. Influencers, that's going to be a hit or miss. It's going to be more of an outreach type thing. So is your time spent there? That could be a quick burst, but it doesn't mean that you're going to keep getting consistent traffic. Pinterest is in there as well. I would say that would be one that I would focus on probably before influencers. And let's see, and Haro, what that basically is help a reporter out. I do love that. And actually, I was going to talk to Chris about this privately, something that we should probably play around with, because that's a great way to get backlinks. It is going to require you to do work, but what you can do is you can sign up. They'll send you articles that they want help doing research or help writing. And then if you are someone in that field that could lend that expertise to them, they will possibly feature you and then backlink to your site, which I think that's a great strategy. And actually a lady I know does that frequently, and she gets tons of great backlinks. So that's actually a great strategy.
So the one thing with help a reporter out, and that is something I've been using them since 2011, 2012, probably even before that, because it was really like a thing in the public relations world before it became kind of known outside of that. Is you do have to be very vigilant of when those emails come in. And I think they send the first like the morning one comes in at like 5:45 a.m. Eastern. And then they send one kind of midday, and then they send one, I think, at like 5 p.m. Eastern, something like that. And if that's something you want to do, that would be the way that I would suggest building links, because all they're going to do is reference you in the article. And even if they don't link over to the website, you get what Google refers to as a non-link reference. I forget what the exact terminology is, but basically Google understands from the semantics that they're referring to your website when they say Chris Schaefer from brandcreators.com. Even if they don't link over to the site, Google understands that, and you get some credit for that. But you have to be very vigilant when those emails come in, because they get a buttload of responses, right? Because everybody kind of knows about it now. So if it's a really obscure topic like underwater basket weaving, you may get a little bit of extra leeway in terms of the time to response. And the other thing is, it is kind of a volume game, right? So you're not always going to get a response when you email them. Sometimes you'll get a thanks, I've already got all the information that I needed. But it is a really cool place to go and see what people are writing about. And if you have the ability to think and spin your topic, right? So it's like, how can I make brand creators fit into this story? Then you can turn a handful of opportunities into a lot of opportunities and kind of expand that out. But you do have to be kind of one of the first people in to be able to actually be referenced in most of the articles that are written there. They do tend to get a lot of responses. So keep that in mind, but it is a really cool tool.
Yeah. And the other, I heard someone, I forget when I heard it and who it was from, but basically to flip that around and you become the reporter, and then you send out requests of, you're going to be writing an article on X, and then you'll have 60 responses come through, and then you can reference them all if you want to. And then you build your roundup post with people that are experts in this industry that give you all of the data, and then you just compile it. So that's another, and then they might even take it and link from their resources.
To use Haro for that, there is a page view minimum, at least there used to be. But that's a strategy, Scott, that you and I have been talking about for a few years now. And I know we talked about it, good Lord, I want to say 2.5 years ago at a lake house meetup for the mastermind group for the Inner Circle. And it's something I was thinking about again the other day, because we were looking at that drum site. And that's exactly what they were doing, is they were sending a form email to famous drummers. And it was basically like, can you give us a response to these 6 questions? And then they would write an article about the drummer for Pearl Jam, right? And it was his interview question responses. And then who knows, maybe the drummer for Pearl Jam, and I have no idea who it is, right? Maybe he tweets that out and you get a bunch of traffic back from that. Well, guess what? You're also going to get links from music-related websites that are writing about Pearl Jam. There's a chance they put it on pearljam.com, right? And if you get a handful of those, then that's really cool. The interview style, the reporter style can be really useful once you get outside of some of the question-based content. It's another form of content that you can create for the site. It's not necessarily designed to get organic traffic because nobody's typing in drumming ninja interview of Pearl Jam drummer, right? But it's a really cool way to build authority. So if you're writing about soccer, right? Let's say you have a soccer niche website. Why wouldn't you send an email to the 50 coaches of, you know, the number one high school coach in each state and see if you can interview them? Guess what? The school that coach works for is going to publish the article that you wrote. They're going to tweet it out. They're potentially going to link to it from your website. They're going to share it on their social media. All of those work to build the overall authority. So that is potentially a strategy that you could use to build authority that wouldn't involve you going out and building links. And it is actually substantially more effective, and it creates real valuable content for people that you can then turn around and turn into something that's what coach wouldn't want to buy a $10 ebook, right, that has all of the recommendations from the top 50 coaches in the nation about the thing that they're coaching, right? So like if you have soccercoach.com, why wouldn't you go do that? Save that for a little bit later, but it's a really, really cool strategy that doesn't take that much time. All you have to do is go to Google, type in what high school won the state soccer championship for Pennsylvania in 2020, right? And then Delaware, New Hampshire, right? You just change that out, grab the news story, get the name of the high school, Google the name of the coach, and send him an email, right? It works in just about every niche. You can do it. And it's a very powerful strategy to go out and build some cool links.
Yeah. And again, I would save that for later because that is going to require some time, and you can outsource some of that to kind of go through and get the ones that are qualified. But I do think that would be something that you could implement, and we might even implement it and build even like a little system that allows us to do that. Because I think that's to your point, Chris, like you could, like I think in any niche, you could reach out to you could write localized stuff, right? And then incorporate localized businesses, right? And then reach out to those localized businesses and say, hey, you were featured in our roundup post because we love what you're doing. That person's going to share that. They're going to tell their mother, their brother, all their friends. They're going to post it all over their social media. And who knows, they might have a site that actually has some authority, and then they'll point a link over to it. So yeah, that's a great strategy, but I think it's a strategy for down the line. It's not one that,
and it's not a traffic building strategy. That would be an authority building strategy.
Yep. Okay, cool. I think that is about it. We did have a quick question on what would you check in USPTO Gov website before starting the niche? Basically, just if there's a trademark on a certain name is really what we would do. And yes, there was a question here is when will we be adding that to the Niche Properties Workshop? I will be recording some supplemental videos here next week. That will be on the list that we'll be doing. And so we'll be emailing everyone that's in the class to let them know when new content is published in there or any additional resources. So that will be happening. I know Chris is working on a product-based post that he's going to be writing and recording and then sharing that exact post inside of the Niche Properties class. And once again, I'll give a little shameless plug. If you want help with building your niche property, then I would definitely encourage you and have you go on over to buildnicheproperties.com. Again, that's buildnicheproperties.com. And you can go through our full training over there. And yeah, you can get things like, well, that right there, like how to check and see that your website or your potential website isn't trademarked, or at least that name, so you don't get in any trouble there. So I think that's about it, Chris. This went longer than I thought, but that's okay. But this is officially our kickoff, our kickoff to the project of the 1K niche property. And this will be a case study, and we're going to be documenting this. And so if you want more on this, head over to brandcreators.com/1K. And depending on when you're listening to this, there should be some resources over there for you, and you can follow along. Chris, anything you want to leave people with before we sign off here?
No, other than, I hope you guys kind of hang out with us and take this journey with us, because it is going to be something that I think is really valuable to see behind the scenes. We're going to be testing a lot of stuff that you guys are going to get to see direct results of, right? Like we said at the beginning, we're testing the expired domain versus a new baby in the sandbox domain. We're testing the content blitz. We're testing a bunch of other things. And so it's going to be a really fun thing to be able to see. And you're going to get to see basically the entire process. Yes, we might not tell you the exact website up front just because we don't want to get artificially high numbers and get excited about that. But we are going to be showing the entire process, and we're going to be doing basically monthly updates from what we've talked about. So you'll get to see behind the scenes how we're doing everything. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun for people.
Yeah, no, I'm excited about it. And one last thing, Alejandro had said, sounds like if you're willing to wait 6 months and create content for that site, you can have a site started from scratch for half the price of an expired site. But then again, that's why the professor is testing it at BCA. And that, my friends, is why he's the professor. Flex arm with some glasses. Oh, I love you, Alejandro. All right, man. So we're gonna get on out of here. So thanks so much, Chris, for taking time out of your morning to hang out with us and really dive into this case study, which I'm excited about. So everyone else listening, thank you so much for being here. Take care, take action, make sure you follow along. And well, I'll see you in the next episode. Take care, guys.